Hey, welcome to the Relentless Pop Pity Podcast from your host, Joe Martin. We got another great guests today. You got two of them right here today. So you got my friends, Jay Watson and Kyle Wiltshire, and they're authors. They're best friends, and they wrote about some dead rock stars who are becoming heroes. Man, if you're not in on that, I don't know what's wrong with you. So, Kyle, Jay, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely. We're glad to be here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're looking
Yeah.
forward
So,
to it.
so I'm just curious about who wants to write about dead rock stars. So Kyle, let me ask you first, what's your kind of professional background?
Yeah, well, this wasn't always what I did, but in the course of writing this book, I became an editor actually, and I don't know that the two are necessarily tied to one another. But after I became an editor and started learning new skills and stuff, because that's not my training, I wasn't an English major, those sort of things, it really kind of it helped us as we're getting to the
Yeah.
finish line of this book is learning how to be a content editor, learning how to see big picture and those sort of things. So yeah, so I'm an editor by trade now.
Man, man, that's awesome. And when I wrote my book, I felt so bad for my editor because I don't know how commas work, parentheses. I mean, I'm shooting out commas like I'm making it rain. It was a rough time for her. So I appreciate people like yourself.
Hey
So
man, I love a good comma. I've never met a run-on sentence that I can't form.
so man, that may be related. Tell people what your professional background is.
My professional background is in ministry and communication. I was a pastor for about 28 years, and right now my main job is promoting this book, and then we'll see what happens next.
Hey, you guys are doing a great job about this. So while I got you, man, how did you and Kyle meet? How did you guys meet?
Kyle and I went to college together. I'm a year older than he is, and so we went to Union University in Jackson, Tennessee. And I was in a fraternity, and the fraternity that I was in had some people that did various jobs. And one of my friends had been a summer intern one summer in Kyle's neck of the woods, and he let me know that Kyle was a little bit of a shy guy. He was a little bit of an introvert, but he was really, really cool, and we had a lot of things in common. So when he got to school, I should reach out to him. And so Kyle's got a pretty good story about how he remembers it.
It's absolutely true. I am an introvert. I am more inclined to aloneness and solitude, um, so I'm sitting in my dorm room and I hear a knock on the door and I go answer it, and it's Jay, and Jay and I had met, but we weren't like close friends yet or anything, but we kind of knew one another. And these are not the words he said, but these are the words I heard. Basically, he was like, "Hey, man, come out of your room. We're going to be friends. Let's go hang out and do some fun stuff together." And, I was at the point and I was like, "I need friends. Absolutely. Let's do it. All right." And ever since then, man, we've been thick as thieves.
Oh, that's awesome. Sometimes people need to force you out of your shell.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
That's a great friend
For
to have.
sure.
That's a great friend to have right there. So, I know you guys enjoy some serious TV, right? So you guys are big TV buffs. What's the biggest argument you guys have had over a TV show or a movie?
We don't argue a ton, but recently in recent years, I think we've gotten a little bit more particular. There's more content to consume, and with that, some of the things that we really care about, we start to have some lively conversations. And I actually asked Kyle about that. I was like, "Man, what have we argued about?" I was trying to think about it. I couldn't come up with anything right off the top of my head, and Kyle very quickly brought up with one, so it made me laugh quite a bit. I was like, "Oh yeah, that was a good one." So Kyle, what was our biggest argument?
Probably a lot of people in this fan base have had this argument, but Star Wars Episode 8. I don't know if you're familiar with Star Wars, you're a fan, but I hated it and he loved it. And that's pretty much it. There's nobody who's indifferent about Star Wars Episode 8. You either love it or you hate it. And I'm definitely in that I hate it camp, and he liked it. So yeah,
And
we argued quite a
sometimes
bit over that one.
sometimes I'll just dig in whether or not I necessarily believe a thing or not. And I did really like the movie when I first saw it. Sometimes you go back to a movie and you're like, yeah, there's some points that maybe Kyle's got a point about, but I would never tell him that ever.
Yeah. Look, what'd you hate about it? What was so bad about it?
I felt like the director of the film, who wrote the film as well, just went off script. He didn't care what the movie before was trying to set up, and he just kind of wrote his own thing. I don't think he, in his desire to break the mold and to do something different and to say, hey, Star Wars doesn't always have to fall in these neat categories. It can be different. I think he kind of hurt the story more than he helped it. And that's a big thing for Jay and I is story. Obviously we're writers, we're authors, and we care deeply about story. And from my perspective, where I sit in Star Wars, I thought he hurt the story. I don't think he helped it at all. That's my, it's kind of my beef.
And you don't do that to Star Wars. You don't hurt Star Wars.
That's right.
That's against the rules. So
I mean, that's why we're here. Star Wars, man, that was an inspiration for us as children. You know, that's why we do stuff like this.
Yeah.
We're like, man, I want to tell stories like that, man, stories that move people.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because Star Wars is not particularly original and
Right.
not anything new under the sun. Right. And so our story has similarities to everything, but it's got, Star Wars also has that uniqueness that, like, even though it is different, I mean, they had Battlestar Galactica or whatever, but like nobody ever told just like a story, just like Star Wars. It took all the things and it borrowed and it made something really special. And for me, episode 8 is a really great movie. Like from start to finish, it's a really tightly written story for one movie. And I think Kyle's looking more at the broader picture of the universe. And I just really appreciated that director and what he did, and some of the interesting choices that he made were a lot of fun. I didn't expect, I don't know. I don't guess we should give spoilers, because I mean, I guess somebody hadn't seen episode 8, but it's been a while. The throne room scene was particularly shocking and good. The way that Luke Skywalker did what he did at the end, I thought it was brilliant, and I laughed and I loved it. And I thought it was pretty freaking cool. It's kind of where I ended up with things. And Kyle was like, "What about the story?" I'm like, nah.
Hey, welcome to the public eye.
Welcome to Star Wars fan is what you're welcoming yourself to.
Yeah,
bunch of trolls.
Yeah, one hates you, one loves you. There you go. You're in the public eye now. Yeah, that's great. Good times. Sure. So you guys are famous for being maybe the only 2 people that saw all 4 Highlander movies. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh man, that was a when you're young adults and you actually have, we're in college and in early 20s or whatever, and you get your Blockbuster card for the first time, you want to use it, so you go to that place and you think, man, there's like a whole bunch of these. Let's watch these, and so
specifically we had a reason for it, because at the time Highlander 2 was considered the worst movie that was ever made. And so I feel like if you get that title, that's something you need to experience. And for us, we're not going to just start with number 2. I mean, we're going to start at the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we burned through those, and that was another inspiration. We're like, surely we could do something better than Highlander 2, right?
We can do better than this.
We've got to do better than that.
Everything is better than that. Were you guys into the TV show as well? Did you branch off into the TV show?
I mean, it was one of those, since it was like a syndicated show, it was sort of on, kind of all the time, so I'd get bits and pieces of it along the way. And I'm sure Jay maybe watched it maybe a little more than I did, but it was one of those that, like, again, here we go back to story. The mythology was so kooky on that, like
it changed from movie to movie.
There can be only one movie. Unless there's others, So the fact that they turned it into like a kung fu style TV show, the old 70s show Kung Fu, where this guy's just wandering, through life. And, I'm like, yeah, I don't know that fits with the story. And so, and then they did a movie where they put the 2 main characters together. They're like cousins or something, it was like, yeah, I don't know about this, but it was fun. It was fun to watch.
My roommate in college thought Duncan MacLeod was the greatest TV character of all time.
Yeah, I get it.
There you go. So let me ask you this. Hey, Jay, what's an underrated movie someone needs to see?
You could go any different way with this, but I'm picking a movie that is maybe not on the radar. It's a brilliant person, but it's maybe one of his less revered films. I think the movie Mystery Men that Ben Stiller wrote is one of the funniest takes on superheroes. It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. William H. Macy, have you seen it?
I have not. I got to see that.
Okay, you got to see this. William H. Macy, he was a great actor. He plays a superhero who has a shovel. Like, he's called the Shoveler, I think. Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, is a superhero, and his gift is flatulence. Like, he can make gas, and that's his trick. There's another guy who says that he can be invisible, but nobody's ever seen him be invisible. and I think Ben Stiller's character is angry. Like, that's his thing. He gets angry, and so. That movie for me just was so absurd and ridiculous that I think it would be a fun thing to go back to and watch today after all the Marvel Universe stuff we've experienced.
I had to check it out now. I mean, you sold me on it. I gotta check it out. How about you, Kyle? What's an underrated one in your eyes?
man, it's hard to say that a movie that made $1 billion in the box office is underrated. But I am just taken with Avatar: The Way of Water, the second one.
Mm.
Um, because the last hour of that movie, they don't make movies like that anymore, where your heart is just in your throat as to what's about to happen. And yeah, it's a CGI, computer generated thing. But you forget that and you watch it, and these computer whales are interacting with, boats, and there's people going everywhere, and there's just a massive battle scene, and there's, children in peril. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but there, so like just the whole time, especially as a parent, I just was on the edge of my seat. And you've got to wait through 2 hours to get to that point. But man, I thought it was so good. And I know a lot of people saw it, but I think a lot of people were just like, but I mean, I found it to be really moving, like a really good film. Jay hadn't even seen it yet. I asked him, I was like, have you seen Avatar 2 yet? He's like, no, man. So I would say that is underrated, because I think it was everywhere, last year when it came out, and people sort of just, it's Avatar, whatever. But I think it's really, really good. People need to check it out if they haven't.
Yeah, I forgot about it. I saw Avatar 1. I really liked it. Saw it in the saw it 3D in the theater. I remember that because my wife is at one of those theaters where you can order food. We had some nachos, and I couldn't
Yeah.
see because I got my 3D goggles on. I'm just trying to watch the movie. And I ate an entire scoop of sour cream in one sitting.
Oh,
So that's how I
gosh.
remember Avatar. Like that's how it's probably
Oh,
not when he's thinking about this directing this, probably not what you want to be memorable for. But the movie's really good, and I just never saw two. I got to go look. That's two movies on my list now. Appreciate that. That's what I was looking for.
it's 3 hours long. I'll just, take a
Yeah,
bathroom break before you watch. But man, that last hour is edge of your seat, like 80s action, like again, stuff they don't make anymore. And it doesn't stop. It's relentless for like a whole hour of just heart pounding. Like you get a workout just watching that from your your heart racing. It's so
I like
good.
it. Nice, man. So, man, I've got friends, I've got best friends, but I never would want to write a book with them. How did you guys say, hey, we need to write a book together? How did that go about?
Well, Kyle had the idea for the book. And as we've talked about before, Kyle and I have different personalities. We have a lot of similarities, but one of the differences in our personality is I'm a little bit more of a risk taker. I'm a little bit more of a let's try it and see what happens. And Kyle's a little more calculated in his choices. And Kyle had this idea. I thought it was an amazing idea. We talked about it for a little while. And then one day, I just said, hey, man, I think this is a brilliant idea. I think that the world needs this. Um, would you be willing to do it with me? Like, let me write the first couple of chapters and let's just see what you think. And so I just was so excited. I mean, we talk on the phone all the time. And so we had talked through the story. We knew some general pieces, but there was a whole bunch of it that was just this untapped world that we got to create. And I think at the time, both of us were in jobs that were challenging, and it was nice to have a little bit of an outlet.
Yeah.
Some people work out, some people do other things. And for us, having a creative outlet was really useful for us at the time. And so I wrote a couple chapters and I sent it to Kyle, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he liked it enough that he got excited. And so he wrote a couple of chapters, and before it was over with, we were just kind of starting writing a book together. And as we went, we kind of made up the rules, right, Kyle?
Yeah, we would do it in pieces. We didn't just let's just start writing and then we'll stop when we stop. I mean, we did it like seriously, like maybe a fifth to a fourth of the book at a time in assignments. You write these chapters. This is the basic premise of what the chapter is going to be about. And he would write a chapter and then I'd read it and then I'd build on his chapter. I'd write a chapter, he'd read it and build on mine. And we kind of developed a process where when I would submit to him a chapter, he would read it, he would make changes, he would highlight things he wanted to change, or things that he didn't necessarily like, or things that he really liked, and so it wasn't just we didn't just come in and just flaming daggers at one another. We came in like, hey, I really like this, I'm not so crazy about this, and so we'd change, we'd adapt what serves the story best. And I do the same for his chapters. And over the course of 2.5, 3 years of writing this thing together, we really have created something that is truly ours. Like, I mean, I could tell you who wrote the initial draft of every chapter in the book just because I remember stuff.
Yeah.
But he's had his fingers all over my chapters. I've had my fingers all over his chapters, so that we share 50-50 in absolutely everything. And so it's really cool that we created this thing together, made it. And we've gotten feedback from a lot of people who have read it saying, I can't tell that two people wrote it. So it's really, really encouraging and cool when we get that, that feedback from folks.
Yeah. Cool shared experience with your best friend, man. That's pretty awesome right there. So I can imagine just waiting on the next chapter from your friend to come must be a pretty cool anticipation deal right there. So I mentioned a little bit.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, I was going to tell you, I mentioned a little bit about what the story is, but tell us a little bit more about the story and how the characters got developed.
Yeah. So the basic premise of the story is, we've kind of talked around it, but imagine if many of your favorite rock stars who died tragically too soon, what if they didn't die? What if they faked their deaths to become secret agents, and they've been secretly in the shadows protecting the world for decades? And so that's the premise. And part of the beauty of this is that we can use real people that people are familiar with: Elvis Presley, John Lennon, Kurt Cobain, people who are real rock stars, because tragically they're gone, they're not with us anymore. For real life, we can actually use their as characters in our story. Now, if they're still alive, we couldn't do that legally. We've had to look into all this stuff, but because they are dead, we can use them as characters in our story. And so they form the team, but there is a protagonist who is the main character, who is not a rock star, who's not a real person, a character that we created named Cole Denton. And Cole Denton is not a music rock star. He's a rock star of a different variety. Jay, why don't you share a little bit about Cole Denton?
Yeah, in the spirit of rock star, we use that term rock star. It's not like a literal term in the sense that it's just people that play rock and roll music. I mean, the word rock star can be used for anything. I mean, you could be a literary rock star, you could be a athletic rock star, whatever. And so for us, these are musical people. But for Cole Denton, we created a character. Our story set in 1999, and the world is changing in 1999. And the character we created is actually a technology star. He's a tech star. In 1999, you had your Bill Gates and your Steve Jobs and your Zuckerbergs and people like that were really changing the world as we knew it, and they were a major influence on the world. So we created a guy who was at the front edge of all of this. And he was approached by Elvis Presley to fake his death to help the world, because the world is in a place that's changing. And at the end of 1999, there's this threat that they don't know as with their skill set how to necessarily stop it, and they need some help. And so Cole Denton is that help to help save the world for them. And so that's kind of, we get to use Cole to kind of be fresh eyes into the world that the reader hasn't seen, we're making up. And so he gets to come through it as though he's never seen it either. And so we get to explain things through his eyes, which is really fun.
That is cool. So the world needs more IT rock stars, right? That's what
absolutely.
So, I'm just reading up on some of this and the characters. I could totally see this story being a movie. I know you guys are big movie buffs. So Kyle, who do you see as some of the actors playing some of these characters from the book?
Man, this is one of our favorite games to play when we were, when we were developing the story and thinking about it. A little bit of an Easter egg. One of the inspirations that we had as we were writing the book was, so many of these people that are in our book, we won't spoil who all's in it, but there's so many people that are in our book, they've already made movies about them, and they made movies about when they were younger, when they were alive. So a lot of those movies are older now, and those actors have aged. So what if some of those actors could reprise those roles in an aged, sense, and they could reprise their character. So my favorite one is, I'll say Jim Morrison is one of the characters in our story. And there was a movie about the Doors that came out in the early 90s, and Val Kilmer played that role. Well,
that's the first one that popped in my head, man. It's weird.
If you followed what's happened in Val Kilmer's life, he had cancer, and he's lost his ability to speak clearly. He could still speak, but it's very labored and hard on him. That's why in Top Gun, he only had a couple of lines, So we thought, man, we could write Jim Morrison in a way where Val Kilmer could play him again. Because in our story, Jim Morrison doesn't speak. He says one word in the whole book. So that's kind of one of our fun ones to hypothesize. Jay has some great ideas on this as well. I'd love to let him share.
Yeah. Jerry Garcia is in our story, and we felt like his personality, Jerry Garcia, is very intelligent, very verbose, very thoughtful and all over the place. And we thought it would be a lot of fun if Jerry Garcia were a secret agent. What could he bring to the table? So we made him, in a way, the team therapist, the team counselor. And so we thought it'd be great to put Jack Black in that role as Jerry Garcia. To be a good look, especially right now with Jack's beard. That could be a lot of fun.
Huge gray beard. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That'd be a fun movie right there. So with anything like this, you're gonna have to have an epic soundtrack. You're just gonna have to. So Jay, what would you see the soundtrack looking like for something like this?
Well, it was something we learned very early on in writing the book. You can't use song lyrics in your book because you'll get sued if you do that, if you don't have the rights. And so we had to kind of adjust that. But in every chapter, our book is filled with musical references. And so we actually already have kind of created a soundtrack. You can go on Spotify. Kyle made it, and it goes chronologically through the book. If you start in chapter 1 and you look at the Spotify list, you'll see a song mentioned, and you can play it. And so you can kind of play along and have the experience as you're listening to the song, as you're reading the book. It kind of works that way.
Cool. What's that soundtrack called, Kyle?
I think it's the Dead Rock Stars is what the soundtrack is listed as. And it's epic. Like Jay said earlier, our book is set in 1999, so the music kind of stops there. But there's all genre and types and styles of music, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to the 90s. That's found in this story. In some ways, it's sort of, when I was a kid, like one of my favorite movies because the soundtrack was Forrest Gump. How there's just all that tremendous music in that movie. And so I kind of felt like, man, if this ever got made, if we could put all this music in this movie, it would rival the Forrest Gump soundtrack for classic rock and, just great music. So yeah, that's kind of a dream, dream scenario.
Oh yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna go check that. I'm a Spotify guy, so I'll go check that out today. So
look it up.
Probably the most important. I'm gonna start with you, Kyle. How are you working yourself into the movie? I mean, are you gonna be drinking coffee in the background? How are you working yourself into this thing?
Yeah, I just want to be an extra. I don't want to have speaking part, put me in the background. We have a really good friend who's really helped us so much, promoting this book and getting it out there. A friend named Brandon Palmore. He was like, man, here's how you repay me. Write me into the story. Let me in the sequel. Write me into the story. Let me be a bad guy that gets killed off or something. So maybe I could be like Brandon. I could be an oncoming,
you could be a henchman.
I could be a henchman, like it's thrown across the room or something. That would be fun. Some kind of background role. Say, oh, there I go. There I'm at. I'm blinking. You miss me.
Jay, you need a speaking part. I know you got the pipes, man. You're the more outgoing. How are you working yourself in?
I haven't really thought about that. It's a great question. I don't know that I've even really considered that at all. Honestly, I think our goal has been to write the story and then hopefully somebody will do the movie, because I would love to watch the movie. But I'd be fine. Secret agents have to have cool stuff.
Yeah.
And in our story, all of these rock stars have a lot of style. And so they all have personal vehicles that they like to drive in, and they live in a place called the Netherworld. And in the Netherworld, they've got people that work there. I'd love to be one of the guys that drives up in a car and drops it off so that the DRS can hop in their car and take off. That'd be fine with me. Yeah. I'd be a chauffeur. That'd be okay.
That'd be a great role, man. Just flipping the keys or something, like a cool
yeah.
That'd be, yeah. All right, so the real most important question: where do we get the book? How do we get the book?
Yeah, you can get it anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere. But if you want an autographed first edition copy, special edition copy, you can get it from our website, deadrockstarsbook.com. We've got books there. We've got t-shirts. We've got a lot of other fun merch. The poster behind Jay, you could get one of those as well. We'll sign them for you. So yeah, that's the best way. The best place to find the book, the special autographed edition, is our website, deadrockstarsbook.com. But it's anywhere else you would ever want to find books online.
Yeah. You can hit them on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere.
But they want the autograph copy. Let's just be honest, man. They want the autograph copy. They want posters. They want all that. So they're going to go to deadrockstarsbook.com. I'm going to link that show note. I'll put Amazon in there. I'll throw them in there as well. But you guys want the autograph. Let's just admit it. So then one more question. When is part 2? When are you starting on part 2? This thing could go anywhere. So I could see this being a series of books. So when's part 2 start?
That's the desire. We want to write a trilogy. That's our ultimate desire. And you know, Jay already mentioned how we kind of have complementary parts. My wheels are always turning. I'm the internal one. I'm always thinking. So man, I've written about 300 pages in my mind of book 2. We don't have them on paper yet, and we haven't fleshed it out together as to how we want the story to go. But we've got an idea. We've got some direction that we want to take it. It's just a matter of let's help book 1 get out there into as many hands as we possibly can, and who knows, maybe in the next year or two we get started on book 2 and get it out there. It won't be like Game of Thrones though. We won't ever, we'll get it out there eventually. We'll eventually get that to the world.
That'd be fun, man. People need to get a copy of this one. So start here. We're going to start here. We'll start with copy 1. We'll work our way up. Hey, if you guys are listening right now, please share this episode. These guys are putting out a positive, good, uplifting story right here. Use your imagination, man. How much more positive it is when your imagination's firing, having fun. A couple best friends out there putting out a bestseller. It's going to be a bestseller. Let's just put it out there in the world right now. So,
Amen.
Jay, Kyle, man, thanks so much for coming on. Anything else before you guys go? Do you guys want to share anything else going on?
Joe, I just want to thank you for having us. We had a great time.
Oh, this was fun, man. Yeah, we could definitely this go along. I got so many more questions, but you guys are busy getting this word out there. So when part 2 comes back, we're going to have you guys back on, but we'll keep pushing this thing. And when the movie comes out for this one too, throw me in as an extra if you got any extra. I mean, if they film it up in your place, man, I'm not too far from you guys.
I love it. That sounds good.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Keep spreading the word about this book. Go see it. It's going to be a movie. Go on Spotify. Check out the soundtrack. That's going to be awesome as well. Get your posters, the signed autograph copies. Hey, man, this thing's going to be big. Might as well get it now before they sell out.
Your lips to God's ear.
That's it. You put out in the universe. Let's go make it happen. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for the Relentless Positivity Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.